More now on the Fed. Congressman Ron Paul, one of the central bank's biggest critics, says it's totally out of control. The Texas Republican talked with Pim Fox on Taking Stock yesterday and admitted the Fed did manage to prevent a deep recession, but only for the Goldman Sachses of the world.
They prevented a bad recession for the people who deserved it, the big money people who made all the billions when they were blowing up the bubbles. But they didn't prevent the tragedy for the people who were on the other end, the mortgage holders and the houses and the unemployed.
Now, with new incoming leadership in the House, Paul has his eye on chairing the Financial Services Committee panel, finally giving him the power to push legislation to rein in the Fed. Ron Paul's moment, which takes a look at the Texas Congressman's 34-year path, leads the politics and policy section of the latest issue of Bloomberg Businessweek. Bloomberg News reporter Phil Mattingly is on Capitol Hill with more from his story. Good to see you. So, Mr. Paul, certainly a colorful character and not one to mince his words. He's been a relative outsider, I guess, in Congress since he first arrived a few decades ago. What's changed in that time?
You know, Ron Paul would tell you himself that he was fringe at best as a lawmaker. Starting in about 2007, he really gained a following with his campaign, his presidential campaign, and now as Republicans are about to take power in January, just due to his seniority, he's actually in line to take over the subcommittee that oversees the Fed.
Here, Phil, that actually puts him in line sort of to take over, but despite being in line for the chairmanship, it's not necessarily a sure thing.
It's very true. You know, because of the fringe aspect of things, Republican leadership has never been a big fan of Ron Paul. He's bucked them on several issues, the Iraq War, defense, things like that. And so they are actually looking for a couple of reasons, not the least of which is the banks are calling them right now and saying, look, we don't want this guy overseeing the Fed. It's dangerous. And so there's some serious deliberations right now amongst House Republican leadership as to whether to even give him the position.
Do you think, the Federal Reserve, he's been an outspoken critic, we said that before, is Ben Bernanke bracing for this potential change in leadership?
Look, he's had a difficult time for the past 2 years. Everybody's seen that. He's very well worn on his trek up to the Capitol building. If Ron Paul takes this subcommittee, it's going to get worse. I think even they would acknowledge that. He wants hearings. He wants investigations. And he needs to be ready if Ron Paul's in power.
All right, Phil, thanks so much for giving us a little insight there. Will be interesting to see what happens next. That's Phil Mattingly from Bloomberg Businessweek. Well, up next, media mogul Barry Diller is shaking things up at IAC Interactive Corp.